Coming in at number 10, we've got Bat-Zaro from Bizarro World. Hailing from the planet founded by Superman's own twisted doppelganger, Bat-Zaro is the self-proclaimed world's worst detective, and spends his nights shooting down couples in Crime Alley as an awful inversion of Bruce Wayne's motivation for being Batman. More of a weird comedic foil to Batman than an actual supervillain threat, Bat-Zaro would eventually try to redeem himself by fighting the Joker and jumping in front of a bullet meant for the real Batman, meaning maybe Bat-Zaro had a little bit of good in him after all. Coming in at number 9, we have the Red Death. The first of many Dark Knights on this list, twisted variants of Bruce Wayne that banded together to escape their dying dark multiverse, the Red Death is a chilling example of what Batman could become if he cared more for his mission than he did for his friends. After the deaths of many of his allies in Gotham City, this version of Batman determined that he was more worthy of using the Speed Force than Barry Allen, and could have saved Robin's life if he was only a bit faster. Unfortunately, this version of Bruce took this plan way too far, capturing the Flash and combining his powers into himself, becoming the Red Death and forcing Barry Allen's consciousness to watch as he began killing every supervillain on the planet and continued his rampage across the entire multiverse. Coming in at number 8, we have the Dawnbreaker. In a dark multiverse world where Bruce Wayne was the one gifted a Green Lantern ring instead of Hal Jordan, this version of Bruce quickly became frustrated with all of the restrictions the Lantern Corps placed on his ring and his ability to wield emotions. Killing every criminal he encountered, Batman's power grew as he combined his ring with the darkness in his own heart, becoming known as the Dawnbreaker as he systematically wiped out every other Green Lantern in the galaxy. By the time he was done, he was the only lantern-wielding entity left in his universe, and joined the Dark Knights in order to find more victims to punish.
Number 7. Leatherwing. According to Earth 10's history, the Axis powers managed to achieve history in World War II. With the National Socialist Party victorious, Bruce became a willing agent of their perverse plans, taking on the identity of Leatherwing. As you can imagine, this guy wasn't too great. Holding the beliefs set out by the powers that ruled, he was against interracial relationships, he believed in a master race, and he held up the many fascist ideals of his team, the New Reichman. Thankfully, the New Reichman were betrayed by their leader Overman, who still knew that this way was the wrong way. Still, a crazy racist Batman gives me chills.
Number 6, Red Death. Another villainous version of Bruce Wayne, Red Death also hails from the Dark Multiverse. If you can't tell, I really like the Dark Multiverse. However, he doesn't come from the Tales of the Dark Multiverse series, but is rather one of the Batman Who Laughs Dark Knights. The Dark Knights are basically like an evil collection of Batmen from across the Dark Multiverse, each one standing in or representing a member of the Justice League. Red Death represents the Flash. In his reality, Bruce Wayne was pushed to the limit after losing so many of his sidekicks, believing that he would be better at using the Speed Force than Barry Allen. He stole the Speed Force from him and then proceeded to use it to kill all of his enemies, becoming known by the speedster and villainous mantle of Red Death.
Number 5. Frankenbat. Castle of the Bat is an Elseworld story from 1994 that basically takes the story of Frankenstein and plops in Batman characters. So, Bruce Wayne, after suffering the death of his father Thomas Wayne, goes almost mad trying to find a way to bring his father back. He succeeds, but not in the way he or anyone else wants. Thomas Wayne is brought back to life and dresses just like Batman normally would, but with more of a gothic Victorian style. And he's a mindless, massive, undead monstrosity. He busts out of where he's being held, and it leads to Bruce having to apprehend his undead dad. The story is actually quite emotional. Check it out.
Number 4. Gods and Monsters. That's right, in the alternate reality of Gods and Monsters, there isn't really a prominent Bruce Wayne. Instead, here Kirk Langstrom, known as Man-Bat in the Prime Earth and New Earth continuities, takes up the mantle of Batman, becoming part vampire bat, part man, also pseudoscience vampire. He was attempting to create a cure for lymphoma, which did work but ended up splicing his genes and turning him into a science-made vampire. Kirk, as Batman from Gods and Monsters, does need to consume blood to survive and typically feeds on either animals or criminals to get it.
Number 3. The Devastator. On alternate Earth -1, Batman and Superman were pals, and everything was dandy. Until one day, Superman changed and rampaged, turning on humanity. Superman killed almost everyone, and Batman tried his best to help bring his friend back. But once Superman killed Lois Lane and cut off Batman's arm, there was no going back. Batman injected himself with the Doomsday virus, turning him into the Devastator, powering him to take out Superman but also making him lose all his sympathy. He still retains all the knowledge of Bruce Wayne plus the fighting skill, and he acts as the muscle for the Dark Knights. Truly a monstrous Batman.
Number 2. Vampire Batman. Gods and Monsters isn't the only reality where Batman becomes a vampire. Oh no. I mean, he is Batman after all, he's Batman. Obviously he's going to be vampires a lot. He also ends up as one in his fight against Dracula in Red Rain. However, Bruce attempts to resist fully turning and giving into his monstrous side here. Instead, he attempts to hold off on completing his transformation fully, becoming a sort of Dhampir, if you will. That is until Joker kills Catwoman, who in this series is also a werewolf. Spooky stuff. Joker taking Selina's life makes Bruce snap, and he ends up feeding on him, seemingly killing him, although it would later be revealed that Joker survived this whole ordeal. Afterwards, Batman has Alfred lock him away, worried about the monster he'll become because he has now tasted human blood.
Number 1. The Batman who laughs. I know, I've talked about him like a lot, but it is for a good reason. The Batman who laughs is arguably one of the most dangerous versions of Batman who's ever lived, or been written. If you don't know yet, he is a dark multiverse version of Batman who has killed the Joker, but inadvertently infected himself with a strain of Joker toxin. The resulting transformation turns this version of Bruce Wayne into an amalgamation of Joker and Batman. All the intelligence and resourcefulness and martial skill of Batman mixed with the buck-wild, psychotic, murderous mind of the Joker. He is pure chaos and destruction, and he lays waste to his own Bat family and the Justice League. He has a pack of Jokerized Robins, and he is the leader of the Dark Knights, a few of which were featured on this list. On top of that, he is just truly terrifying to see.
Number 10. Legends of the Dead Earth. In Legends of the Dead Earth, the surviving human population of Earth are all basically aboard a spaceship, which drifts kinda aimlessly through space as it's lost its heading. The humans have also been on the spaceship so long, they basically forgot there's even a world outside. However, Batman rises up among them to become a hero and help them once again find their way. This Batman is not the Batman, Bruce Wayne, but instead a well-meaning citizen on the spaceship who learns the truth about how they are basically lost. He takes up the mantle of the hero from old folklore, known as Batman, and inspires a girl aboard the ship named Tris Plover to help him in his fight to fix the ship's navigation system. It's actually a really depressing story though, because in the end she's like, man, I'm not gonna be alive to get to this planet. What's the point of anything? Number 9. Saint Batman. Saint Batman was the name Azrael took up in one of the Dark Multiverse alternate realities. Here, Azrael had taken up the cape and cowl in Batman's stead after his back was broken by Bane, but refused to give back the mantle, and instead of Batman defeating Jean-Paul and taking the mantle back, Azrael basically won that fight, keeping it. He turned Bruce into a shadow of his former self, removing all his limbs and keeping him alive through kind of a cybernetic life support thing, which also seemed to cause Bruce extreme pain. Years later, Bruce is saved by the son of Talia al Ghul and Bane. However, it turns out in rescuing Batman and later defeating Azrael, they really just swapped out one awful tyrant for an even worse one. And friends, before we head on to the next point, if you are loving this list, we would love if you headed over to our Facebook page and gave it a like and a follow. It really does help us out over here at YouTube, so thank you! Number 6. Jace Fox. Jace becomes Batman in the possible future we get a glimpse into through DC's Future State event. In this event, Jace Fox, also known as Tim Fox, one of the children of Batman's ally Lucius Fox, ends up becoming Batman in a cyberpunk dystopian future where Gotham has become a police state. Jace is a mysterious figure but stumbles upon Batman's tech and decides to try and use it to do some good, despite the fact that at this point all masks are outlawed in Gotham. Jace Fox keeps his vigilante deeds and persona a secret from the rest of the Fox family. Many of his combat skills come from his life as a mercenary and from Katana, who he was once a protege of. Number 7. Batman the Silenced. One perfect spine-chilling dark multiverse tale that I have loved, which even comes with its own creepy lullaby, is the Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush. In this story we get a reimagined narrative where Batman's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot, is the one who ends up messing up Bruce's life. Tommy in his adult years allies himself with many of Gotham's villains, and more usually anti-hero types, after Bruce Wayne ends up in Arkham Asylum, which also was kind of part of his doing. However, Bruce isn't quite as checked out as he's been pretending to be, and he ends up escaping in order to get revenge and taking up the mantle of Batman the Silenced, an alternate version basically of Hush, and of course an alternate version of Batman. Number 6. Vampire Batman. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the alternate Earth 43. As his moniker describes, he is a version of Bruce Wayne who transforms into a more literal version of Batman when he becomes a vampire. Batman. Get it? Cause vampire bats. Oddly enough, this is also not the only version of Batman in the multiverse that also happens to be a vampire, as you already know, because we talked about Gods and Monsters Batman as well, who's also a vampire. Despite being a vampire on Earth 43, Bruce still fights on the good side, fighting against his vampiric urges to feed on human blood. At least, initially he fights against them. At one point, Vampire Bats asks Alfred to stake him in order to prevent him from giving in to his bloodlust, after he seemingly killed the Joker by draining him of all of his blood. However, a stake through the heart doesn't actually kill Batman here, but simply leaves him in a coma. Months later, Gotham is in a pretty bad place without Batman's presence, and Alfred is forced to awaken him in hopes that Gotham will once more have a savior. Batman does go about taking out criminals, but in a very vampiric way, creating a bloodbath as his time staked and his bodily decay has resulted in the loss of his sanity. So he's there and he's killing criminals, but he's like killing criminals, and it's like a lot. Number 5. The Merciless. This alternate version of Bruce is one who ends up wielding the power of Ares in the memory of Wonder Woman. Oh yeah, and he's also the one who fought with Diana to the very end against Ares before he inevitably was kind of forced to kill her. Or forced in his eyes, but in our eyes we're like, Bruce, don't do that. Don't do it. This alternate version of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, hails from the dark multiverse of Earth at -42 and is one of the Batman who laughs Dark Knights. To me, he represents Bruce's obsession with power and symbolizes what could very well happen if this was left unchecked. Bruce here loved Diana, but still ended up betraying her because he knew that she would not allow him to keep the power of Ares for himself, and that she would rather destroy such power. So he was like, I gotta hold on to the power because I'm doing great with it, so I guess I gotta kill ya. But also, he wasn't doing that great with it. Spoiler alert. Number 4. The Bruce. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the reality belonging to Batman I Joker. Here Batman is a tyrant and a symbol who is worshipped as a god. This is not our own Bruce Wayne, by the way, but like a dystopian, almost cyberpunk future version of the character where the people of Gotham see him as their ruler and god. In fact, I don't even know if this guy's name is actually Bruce Wayne or is Bruce at all. I think he's just a person that's elected and like that's the role you play, or that seized power. The people of Gotham worship him and his mission for vengeance. The whole comic is pretty horrifying to read and reveals how even the best of heroic intentions can be perverted over time. Nothing scarier than just humanity and the way that we think things through and can like take a good idea and make it into something a lot more sinister. That's the scariest thing of them all. Well, almost. There's a few more points. Number 3. Murder Machine. Murder Machine is an alternate version of Bruce Wayne who hails from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -44. Here Bruce Wayne turns to his friend and colleague Cyborg for help, building an AI to supplement Alfred after Bruce's longtime friend, butler, and father figure is tragically murdered. However, this AI is programmed to protect Bruce at all costs, which ends up leading the Alfred Protocol, as it's named here, to take over Bruce, replacing his human body with a mechanical, indestructible, and immortal one, turning Bruce into the Murder Machine. The Alfred Protocol, which Bruce is now fully merged with, also takes away Bruce's ability to feel fear or sadness. I think you know where this is going. It's not going to a good place. In the end, it labels everyone a threat to Bruce and helps him to kill all those who could potentially harm him, including the entire Justice League. Pretty bleak stuff. Number 2. Nemesis. Nemesis is probably one of the most brutal Batman alternates we've ever encountered. Probably also because he doesn't even hail from DC Comics himself, but instead is a creation of Mark Millar's, who hails from Icon Comics. Mark Millar doesn't hail from Icon Comics, but this character does. Mark Millar does many things. Well, we do have an elaborate backstory for Nemesis, which involves him also seeking vengeance for the death of his parents, but in a much more twisted way, since his parents were actually the worst kind of wealthy folks and murderers themselves. themselves, it's never really even confirmed that this backstory is the true backstory of Nemesis. In fact, it's even implied in the story that Nemesis could actually be multiple people who just cause mayhem and death and destruction because, well, maybe they just enjoy it? The whole idea of the character and everything that he does is pretty messed up and is quite dark. Nemesis provides a much more villainous take on the idea of vigilantes and how motivation can mess you up, or alternatively, how you really don't even need motivation to become a messed up and brutal vigilante in the first place. Also power. Lots of things about power, because that's how it goes. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Obviously one of the darkest and scariest alternate versions of Batman out there has to be the Batman Who Laughs. This version of Batman is actually like an amalgamation of Joker and Batman, but he is ultimately an alternate of Bruce Wayne, because he is Bruce Wayne, so a little more Bruce really than Joker in the end. He used to fight crime as Batman, but one day Joker took things too far and caused Batman to snap. And not just snap internally, but externally as well, when he actually snapped Joker's neck, killing him. Joker released a special brand of Joker venom with his last breath, which Bruce breathed in. Over time, this venom made him paranoid and homicidal, and ultimately he became the villain of the story, going so far as to kill all the members of the Bat family, knowing they would not be able to join him, or not be willing to join him, I guess I should say. Well, he killed all of them at least except one. His son Damian Wayne was offered a spot at his father's side, and he ended up taking it. Batman then became the insane Batman Who Laughs and set out to conquer and reshape the entire multiverse. Which definitely means you're pretty scary. If you are like, I'm not just gonna take over this world, I'm gonna like go beyond that. That's a lot. Number 10. The Dawnbreaker. The Dawnbreaker was so unstoppable that he managed to destroy his entire world. This version of Bruce Wayne hails from the dark multiverse, from Earth -32. Here Bruce's story goes as anticipated in the beginning, with him being just a child when his parents were gunned down by Joe Chill. However, young Bruce in this tale is instead granted a Green Lantern ring following his parents' deaths, and ends up joining up with the Green Lantern Corps. The oath of Green Lanterns, though, does not necessarily resonate with Bruce, with him only seeing his ring as a means for him to get his revenge. Despite the fact that the Green Lantern's rings normally cannot be used to kill, Bruce pours his inner darkness, his void of emotion, into this ring, corrupting it and thereby willing it to kill, and even using it to temporarily raise the dead. He goes on to kill all of the criminals of Gotham, face off with the Green Lantern Corps, and successfully kill them and the Guardians of the Universe, and of course, destroy the entire world. Well, his entire world. A world. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like? Number 9. Helena Wayne. Helena Wayne goes on to take up the Batman mantle on Earth 2. The new 52, Earth 2 that is. This version of Helena Wayne was helping her father to fight against an army of parademons as his Robin, when she was transported to another world. Now on this Earth 2, Helena Wayne is actually the daughter of Bruce, so yeah. Despite the fact that her father did not survive that battle, Helena and Supergirl both did, being transported to the Prime Earth continuity. While here they initially were also unstoppable in their search to find a way home, at least initially. Despite the fact that Huntress, aka Helena Wayne, the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, would eventually give up on this dream, she and Supergirl would also eventually be returned home to Earth 2. Once there, Helena would go on to also take up the mantle of Batman. Number 8. The Batman. I think one of the most unstoppable Batmen I've seen recently, despite his youth, would be our Year 1 Batman from the now Elseworlds DCU movie, The Batman. In this film, Batman is played by Robert Pattinson and is presented as a version of Bruce who is still kind of struggling to find his footing in the city of Gotham as a hero. In fact, many people actually fear and revile Batman at this point, GCPD included, who, other than Jim Gordon, are not really on his side. However, despite being less experienced in comparison to some of the older, more established versions of the character, I would say that Batman, against all the odds here, is still impressively unstoppable. This likely has to do with the fact that he is not only attempting to prove himself as an ally and force of good to the city and its people, but also kinda to himself, trying to find a purpose in a world that he seems to have become increasingly disconnected from. In the end, Batman realizes that hope above all else is one of the most important things, not fear, and we see him begin to make his way down the path to becoming the hero that Gotham needs. Number 7. Justice League of Assassins. In the alternate future reality of Earth 14, the JLA is a little bit different. Instead of being the Justice League of America, they are known as the Justice League of Assassins, which still perfectly fits that same acronym, so yay, JLA. Like in the main reality, Batman also ends up joining this team. The world they live in seems to be a post-apocalyptic war zone when we see the JLA in issue number 15 of the 2016 Superman series. Despite their most valiant efforts, the Justice League of Assassins, including Batman, end up defeated and killed by the Prophecy. Batman actually ends up losing his head as a result of this fight. He's like the first one to go. Gets his head shot clean off. At least he still gets to finish what he was saying though, as his head pops off. Number 6. Helena Wayne. In the alternate future reality of Earth 2, it is Helena Wayne, Batman and Catwoman's daughter, who lives on to carry on the Batman legacy. Helena Wayne is often known by the name Huntress, not to be confused with Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress of the main continuity, but eventually goes on to take up her father's mantle of Batman. Yeah, not Batwoman, just Batman. Kinda love it. We haven't gotten to see too much of Helena's Batman in action, but I have always loved the idea of Catwoman and Batman settling down together and having a daughter who would one day be inspired to carry on their legacy and become a hero using either of their superhero names in their honor. Number 5. Dark Knight Returns. This is an older version of Bruce from Frank Miller's alternate future reality of Earth 31. Here Batman comes out of retirement when Harvey Dent returns. To make matters worse, the Joker also escapes custody. Not only does Batman have Dent, the Joker, and the criminal scum of Gotham to contend with, but Superman is also after him as well. In this reality, Superman had become a government hero, becoming the loyal ally to the President of the United States. Kind of like his guard dog, really. And the President of the United States does not take too kindly to Batman's return. In the end, the two must face off in a famous fight that would go on to inspire multiple narratives, including the Batman v Superman film from the DCEU. Number 4. Damian Wayne. One of the darkest Batmen to arise would be Damian Wayne's Batman. Damian takes up the cape and cowl in a possible future story featured in Batman issue 666. Get it? 666. Known as Batman in Bethlehem. Batman in Bethlehem is a story where in the future, Damian Wayne sells his soul to Satan in order to ensure Gotham's protection. This drastic measure happens in a world where people really are looking for some kind of security as climate change, war, and acts of terror threaten the entire planet, turning it into a hellish futuristic landscape. This future version of Damian, who becomes Batman, also seems to be impervious to gunfire and no longer restrains himself from killing those who oppose him. Kinda like my dad was here so that I could be this Batman later. I feel like Daddy Batman would not be too happy with you, Damian. He would be like, don't kill people, but you're gonna do what you're gonna do. I guess it's a different world. Number 3. Thomas Wayne. Although it might seem weird to put Thomas Wayne on this list as he's Batman's father and so in a way is part of his past, in the alternate future known as Flashpoint, Thomas actually becomes Batman instead of Bruce. This is after Bruce is killed, causing Thomas to make a plan to get vengeance and inspiring him to become a vigilante fighting for justice on the streets of Gotham. Martha, however, kinda goes the opposite way with it. The death of Bruce causes her to basically go insane. Unable to move on or let go, she ends up haunted by his memory and becomes the villain known as the Joker, becoming Thomas's sworn nemesis, despite the love that they once shared. What a tragic story. Number 2. Dick Grayson. Helena isn't the only one to carry on Batman and Catwoman's legacy on Earth 2. Let's not forget that before Helena was born, Batman had an adoptive son in the boy wonder known as Robin, aka Dick Grayson, often known as the original Robin across many different worlds. On Earth 2, Dick Grayson would end up taking his adoptive father's mantle before Helena did and operate as Batman for a time. He settles down with Barbara Gordon and the two even have a son together who they name John. Dick, however, loses the use of his legs when he becomes paralyzed by the Joker shooting him through the stomach, which damages his spine. Sound familiar? Dick would later become Oracle. In this reality, Barbara ends up as a cop who gets shot and dies while attempting to help her family flee Darkseid's invasion. Their son John grows up to become his Aunt Helena's sidekick, Robin. Super cute. I like it. Not Babs' death though. I don't like that. That's not nice. Number 1. Terry McGinnis. When it comes to Batman, there are actually a lot of people who would be suited to don the cape and cowl. Sometimes in his stead, and other times as those who would take up the mantle after he dies or he retires. In the case of Terry McGinnis, he was pretty much created to become the new Batman. Using Bruce's own DNA, Amanda Waller designed Terry as part of her project Batman Beyond. She basically overwrote the reproductive DNA of Terry's father and chose the McGinnis family to create the modern genetic Bruce Wayne duplicate because their psychological profiles were close matches to Bruce's own parents, Thomas and Martha Wayne, which means that, when Terry grows up, he should be pretty much a perfect replica. Even more so if his parents had been assassinated like Amanda wanted, but didn't work out for Waller there. Probably for the best though. I don't think you should assassinate people's parents just to turn them into Batman. That seems pretty messed up, even for Amanda Waller. Number 10, Reverend Bruce Wayne. Reverend Bruce isn't particularly scary to begin with, but the world he comes from and the fight he fights is definitely scary. This is a version of Batman who isn't just taking up the mantle to fight his parents' killers and rid Gotham of crime, but instead is attempting to fight against a whole political and societal system. In the Elseworld story Batman Holy Terror, the course of history is changed somewhat so that America is basically still part of the Commonwealth. As such, it turns out that the seemingly random mugging and murder of Bruce's parents was not actually so random, and was actually a government hit that was later made to look like a mugging gone wrong. When Reverend Bruce finds out about this, he dons a demon costume that once belonged to his father Thomas and sets out to investigate. He also goes on to find out about government-run human experiments and an alien whom they captured, raised, and later killed with green rocks when he became too hard to control. Poor would-be Superman. Number 9. Gods and Monsters Batman. This version of Batman is not Bruce Wayne, but is instead Kirk Langstrom. In this reality, there is no Bruce Wayne to take up the mantle, and so Kirk ends up with the name himself. Not because he was inspired by a bat smashing through a window, of course, but because he is kind of actually part vampire bat. Kirk was a brilliant scientist who was working on a cure for lymphoma. He eventually figured out how to create this cure using bat saliva and nanotech to strengthen his experimental treatment. However, while it succeeded in curing his cancer, it also turned Kirk into a pseudo-vampire. While he remains a hero and typically only ingests artificially created plasma or even animals' blood, which can also help him to survive, he has also been known to feed on criminals from time to time. He's like, these criminals, nah, I gotta eat, they kinda deserve it, I'm just gonna eat them. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more scary alternate Batman lists, of which, let's be real, there's a lot of scary alternate Batman out there, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Spooky thumbs up, spooky spook. Number 8, DCEU Batman, or Batfleck if you prefer. Ben Affleck's Batman from Batman vs Superman especially is a much darker figure in comparison to the comics, and kind of in comparison to a lot of other Batmen that have been on the big screen. This is a version of the hero who has decided that he is willing to kill when he needs to. All in all, it seems to be implied that the death of Jason Todd is what reshaped Batman's morals here and caused him to readjust his code. Not only does he kill, but he also does something even worse in my opinion, branding some of the worst criminals that he fights against with a literal bat brand. These are the criminals that Batman has deemed to have done something completely unforgivable. And the thing is that people in prison in Gotham also know the significance of the Bat brand, meaning that those who end up with one are basically marked for death. The idea here is that the inmates will carry out the death sentence that Batman has marked them with because they know that whatever this person did, it was one of the worst crimes, otherwise they wouldn't have this brand. So not only is there an extra layer of fear, but this also shows a complete disregard for human life. I mean, at least a disregard for human life when it comes to really, really terrible criminals. Batman wants these criminals to live in fear, and he doesn't care what happens to them in prison. In fact, he kinda hopes that they end up dead.
Coming in at number 7, we have Owlman, the evil opposite of Bruce Wayne from the inverted Earth 3. Born under the name of Thomas Wayne Jr., as a young boy, Owlman murdered his younger brother Bruce and had his butler Alfred kill his parents to ensure that the Wayne fortune was not wasted by their frivolous spending. Using his costumed identity as Owlman to intimidate the leaders of Gotham into falling under his control, Owlman was a twisted version of everything that Batman stood for, and every time their universes have crossed over has led to some incredibly dramatic battles. And speaking of evil Batmen named Thomas Wayne, coming in at number 6 we have the Batman of the Flashpoint universe, aka Thomas Wayne Sr. In a world where Bruce was gunned down by Joe Chill instead of his parents, Thomas Wayne became a dark and murderous red-tinted Batman, while Martha would be cursed to become this universe's version of the Joker. While initially an anti-hero ally during the first reveal of the Flashpoint universe, this Batman would go on to become a threat to the real Batman when he returned to the main DC universe and allied himself with Bane in order to get Bruce to quit being Batman forever. There's probably an easier way to get your son to stop being a superhero superhero than allying yourself with a supervillain, but hey, I guess that's just some Wayne family drama that will continue to unfold as Thomas Wayne continues to make his way through the DC multiverse. Coming in at number 5, we have the Merciless, another of the Dark Knights. In an alternate universe in which Ares, the god of war, declared war against all of existence, Batman stood with the rest of the Justice League in a battle that literally lasted for eons, until the sole combatants left in the entire universe were Ares and Batman, still standing through sheer willpower alone. After landing a blow that knocked Ares' magical helmet off, Batman was forced to put the helmet on to finally defeat the God of War, leaving him the only survivor of this burned-out universe. This Batman unfortunately became addicted to the power and bloodlust granted to him by the helmet, and joined forces with the rest of the Dark Knights in order to survive the destruction of his universe, going forth to find new worlds for him to become a new God of War against. Coming in at number 4, we've got another of the Dark Knights with Murder Machine. This version of Bruce Wayne comes from a universe very similar to the main DC continuity until the tragic death of Alfred Pennyworth at the hands of multiple Batman villains. Heartbroken and traumatized by the footage of the incident, Batman convinces his friend Cyborg to recreate Alfred's personality as an artificial intelligence. Unfortunately, this AI takes its task of protecting Batman far too literally, altering his brain chemistry to erase any sense of fear and completely replacing Bruce's frail human body with a metal replacement. Taking the name of Murder Machine, this Batman spread the Alfred AI throughout Gotham and was able to kill every criminal in Arkham Asylum, showing what would truly happen if Batman didn't have a heart. Coming in at number 3, we have the Devastator, a horrifying combination of Batman and Doomsday. This story takes place on one of the many dark multiverse worlds that saw Superman going rogue and taking over the entire planet, even murdering his own wife. To stop the demented Man of Steel, this Batman was forced to ingest the Doomsday virus, a last-ditch effort to save the planet that gave Bruce the strength to kill Superman, but at the terrible cost of his own mind. Furthermore, the Doomsday virus began to spread off Bruce's body and kill off the rest of this world, dooming the planet anyways, and leaving the Devastator as a beast-like Batman waiting for the rest of the Dark Knights to save him from his collapsing planet and give him a new target to hunt, even if eventually this Doomsday Batman hybrid would be defeated by, you guessed it, the real Superman. Coming in at number 2, we have the Emperor of Shadow, aka Bruce Wayne. In a recent one-off issue entitled Batman Superman Authority Special, Batman discovers a reality from the dark multiverse where Ra's al Ghul's plans to dominate humanity have come to pass, and the League of Shadows has become an Empire of Shadows, controlling the entire world. To make matters worse, the leader of this empire is a Bruce Wayne who gave in to Ra's al Ghul's teachings and embraced his position as the world's new emperor. While Batman and Superman were eventually able to destroy the link between this world and the regular DC universe in order to prevent an invasion, this twisted version of Bruce Wayne is still out there, likely biding his time until the next opportunity arises for the dark multiverse to attack the regular multiverse once again. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Batman Who Laughs. In a dark alternate world where the Joker realizes he's dying and begins a mass killing spree of everyone in Gotham, Batman is forced to finally kill his fated foe. Unfortunately, at the moment of death, Bruce was infected with a special brand of Joker venom that completely flipped his moral compass, but left intact all of his intelligence and planning. All of the chaos of the Joker with the brains of Batman, this supervillain is Bruce Wayne's worst nightmare come to life, and so far remains the most evil and deadly variant to ever be seen across the entire dark multiverse.
Kicking off the list at number 10, the Devastator. There's a name right there, okay. Bruce Wayne of Earth 1 made his first appearance in Dark Days, the casting. This Batman is one of Barbados' Dark Knights. Now, he started out the usual Batman way, lost his parents, became Batman, hung out with the Justice League. He actually got along with Superman quite well. He genuinely believed in his ideals of hope. But it is Batman we're talking about. Just because he trusted him doesn't mean he wasn't always prepared. Bruce kept the Doomsday virus just in case. So when Superman did go on and become a little crazy and started killing people, Batman figured, okay, now is the time to use this thing. Bruce first used a kryptonite spear to try and do the trick, but Superman just monologued in his face. Nothing was working. So now it's doomsday time. The Devastator was born. The virus changed Batman instantly, physically of course, but also mentally. Now he had no problem killing what used to be one of his best friends. Using kryptonite breath, Bruce weakened the god and then finished him with some doomsday spikes. Nice dark note to start the list off. There we go. Number 9. Multiverse Bat-Baby. In part 1 of this list, we of course had to mention the time Batman was shrunk down to the size of a baby, so naturally in part 2, we need more baby goodness. Dark Knight's Death Metal Legends of the Dark Knights issue 1. Bruce has a plan. Now this version was planning on living a second lifetime. More crimes to solve, more risks to break, more bills to pay. The man is committed. Now he had already taken down the Joker, Riddler, Two-Face, and Scarecrow at this time, but he wanted more. After his passing, his mind was safely stored in the cyberspace, and it was then transferred into this new body waiting in the Batcave. This time seems way harder for Bruce. See, in the early issues, he just made little trousers and still continued to fight crime. It was fun, it was almost cute. Here, he was rolling downstairs. He couldn't even walk. He probably his pants, and then he just lays down and cries for the rest of the day. The best part is that he has the mind of Bruce still, so those tears just aren't baby tears. That's pure agony. Now he finally figured out, how to use his legs in life. He gets the jetpack to make up for those tiny legs, and he still goes on saving the day as the guardian of Gotham. And before we continue on with this weird list, if you want to go ahead and give us a thumbs up, that would be awesome. It helps us out so much. Thank you so much for watching. Let's get back to the video. Also, thank you for 1.1 million subscribers. That's huge. That was a nice thing to wake up to. Number 8. Red Sun Batman. Superman Red Sun was released in 2003. It earned Mark Millar an Eisner Award nomination in 2004, but he always wondered what life would be like if Superman was raised in the Soviet Union. What a fun idea. So in this story, the ship lands on a Ukrainian collective farm instead of Texas, and as for Bruce Wayne in this reality, well, his parents still end up biting the bullet, but this time it's by Stalin's police force. So his main goal was to get back at that captain of said police force, Roslov. This version of Batman, just look at the attire. How do you not love him off the bat? He kidnapped Wonder Woman, tied her up with her own lasso, rude, and then used her to draw Red Sun Superman out. And of course, it worked like a charm. Using simulated red sunlight, he weakened Superman, locked him in a basement, ideally forever, but Wonder Woman broke free, took care of those red sun lamps, and right before Batman was about to get the beatdown of his life, he detonated a bomb in his own chest. Honestly, I think Red Sun Superman would still be a lot more painful than a chest bomb. Still dark either way.
Number 7. Jason Todd. In Battle for the Cowl, Batman is believed dead, and a final message is passed on to the Bat family members. Among those summoned to hear Bruce's final words is Jason Todd, former Robin, sometimes villain, and all around just a pretty complex character and vigilante. With Bruce absent, Jason believes this is his opportunity to prove himself and take up the cape and cowl. As Batman, Jason is relentless, not shying away from bloodshed or killing the criminals he comes up against, and dons a heavily armored suit and the former mask of Michael Lane's Azrael when he was the Bat Devil mask. This version of Batman is not against using guns, making him even more deadly, especially when he obviously shoots to kill. Jason Todd's version of Batman managed to best Nightwing, Tim Drake, and Catwoman in battle, successfully defeating all of them, although in the end, Nightwing did return and managed to defeat Jason, but this was also in part due to Dick gaining the upper hand in their final fight. Well, not their final fight, because this is comics, so there's a lot of stuff that happened after this, but just in regards to this specific story, Number 6. Dark Knight Returns. Of course, we have to have Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller's dark, futuristic take on an older Bruce who chooses to return from retirement and don the cape and cowl once more. He is kinda the definition of unstoppable, is he not? This version of Batman ends up literally leaving retirement as an old man to come back and kick some butt. And he does a pretty freaking great job, I gotta admit, even almost beating Superman before seemingly dying of a heart attack, but even then, not really. So while Superman seemingly wins the ultimate and famous fight between the two of them, it's revealed that in the end it may have all just been part of Bruce's elaborate plot, meaning that as always the detective also wins in the end, especially because Superman's kinda like, yeah, I know he's still alive, it's all good. Number 5. Dick Grayson. Well, not quite as adept and skilled as Batman is, Nightwing has the range of skills to excel as Bruce's replacement, which is what happens in the New Earth continuity after Bruce is believed to have been killed in a fight against Darkseid. Dick Grayson ends up taking up the Batman mantle in his adopted father's absence, believing that Gotham needs Batman and that it would be unwise to let it be known that the original Batman is gone and dead. While Nightwing has many accomplishments as Batman, I more wanted to discuss him because I believe that not only is Dick Grayson a great option when it comes to the Batman legacy, but that recently, even outside of that, he's definitely proven himself to be unstoppable as a character, with or without the Batman mantle attached to him or even affiliated with him. Lately, he's been excelling as Nightwing, the protector of Bloodhaven, and is returning once more to lead the Titans, who will become the protectors of Bloodhaven, and obviously the protectors that Bloodhaven is desperately needing right now. A symbol of hope for a place that is sometimes presented as being even more corrupt than Gotham. However, it should also be noted that before this, Dick was also offered the opportunity to lead the Justice League, following the events of Dark Crisis, with Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman all seemingly coming together to decide that Nightwing was the best candidate to lead a new league in their absence. Of course, even though Nightwing was flattered by this, he chose instead to bring the Titans back and return as their leader. Or well, I mean, the Titans never really went anywhere, but he was like, we're gonna do Titans now instead. Ba-ba-ba. Number 4. Batman Red Sun. Batman Red Sun is definitely one of the most unstoppable Batmen around. He hails from Earth 30, an alternate world where Superman's Kal-El instead fell to Earth and landed in Soviet Russia, growing up there and becoming a Russian hero as opposed to an American one. Batman is a hero who actively fights against the Soviets, seeking revenge for the death of his parents, who were murdered by Stalin's police. Batman eventually is manipulated into taking on Superman himself, and while he does fail to kill Superman, Batman still makes an impressive attempt there. Especially impressive when you consider that this Batman, like so many others, is completely unpowered. And despite not physically winning that fight, choosing to die rather than allow himself to be captured in the end, Batman still manages to reveal the truth about the people that Superman works for, turning Superman against them and thereby getting his own revenge, despite not being alive to see it fully realized. Batman also lives on after the initial man's death that represented him, inspiring others in Russia to take up the mantle in his place and continue the fight for justice. So although the original guy that was Batman in that reality is dead, Batman still lives on and becomes unstoppable because legacy. Number 3. God of Knowledge. While still technically the main continuity Batman we currently have in the DC universe, and not in the traditional sense an alternate as in someone from another Earth or an Elseworld story, as we counted Dick Grayson before, who is also in the main continuity, I would like to present this version of Batman who represents a specific time in Bruce's life when he happened to gain the powers of Mobius, or at least the power of Mobius's chair. This was a device and tech that was initially used by Mobius, aka the Anti-Monitor, but given to the new god Metron by Mobius, before Batman ended up taking it for himself during Darkseid War. The chair grants whoever sits upon it vast knowledge, and also allows whoever pilots it to travel through time and through to various dimensions. In other words, this made Batman pretty insanely unstoppable. During Darkseid War, various heroes and villains took on new identities, becoming not new gods in terms of, the group of cosmic beings, but new gods in terms of them becoming gods, which was new gods, not new gods. Number 2. Batman in Bethlehem. In an alternate future, Damian Wayne ends up becoming Batman, and everything goes pretty crazy as a result. He takes up the mantle following the death of Dick Grayson, who ends up becoming Batman after Bruce retires. Following the death of his adopted brother Dick Grayson, Damian sees killing as kind of the only way to deal with criminals like the Joker, who ended Dick's life in this case. However, Bruce disagrees, refusing to let Damian take up the mantle of Batman initially, and eventually kicking him out of the Batcave and Bat family as a result of his actions. Eventually, Damian would earn his father's forgiveness and his respect once more, and go on to take up the mantle, continuing to be Batman even after both Bruce's and Alfred's deaths. However, he would once again be seen as a killer, a much crueler and less forgiving version of Batman in the future. Damian even goes so far as to sell his soul to seemingly the devil, and in the end, Gotham ends up the victim of a nuclear attack in a harsh and chaotic apocalyptic post-apocalyptic futuristic world. Still, Damian never gives up and even goes on to renegotiate his bargain with Simon Hurt, who is suggested to be the devil here. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Batman Who Laughs is hands down one of the most despicable and unstoppable Batman we've ever encountered, I think, in the comics. What makes him so unstoppable? Well, he's kind of an unreal combination of Batman and Joker blended together, and I would say it's that makes him so interesting, unique, and ultimately unpredictable and unstoppable. I mean, think about it. He has all the logic and skills of Batman, but the level of cruelty and off-the-wall thinking of the Joker. When he sets his mind to something, usually the Batman Who Laughs ends up on top and gets what he sets out to get. And I know what you're going to say, but Amanda, hold on a minute. Wasn't he defeated during Dark Knight's death metal? Yes, he ultimately was, but at the same time, look at all he accomplished before that. I mean, this is the guy who was able to take down one of the most powerful villains out there, Perpetua, who is older seemingly than time itself, known as one of the hands of creation, and is the mother of both the Monitor and Anti-Monitor, as well as, the World Forger. So that's pretty wild to me. Number 10. Anti-Living Batman. I am so torn when it comes to this zombie-like infected version of Bats. He hails from the deceased universe, where he ends up tragically being infected by the anti-life equation and turned into a member of the anti-living, a mindless, violent zombie. However, before this happens, Batman is one of the first to figure out just what is really going on, and to try to find a cure or a way to stop it. In the end, however, he gets infected, and despite trying to slow down the infection with one of Mr. Freeze's cryo suits, succumbs to the virus. He doesn't stay a zombie-like anti-living being for long though, as Alfred Pennyworth, his butler, puts him out of his misery. Really, his whole transformation is just like making preparations, passing on vital information to those not yet infected, and saying goodbye to his son, Damian Wayne. So like, he's a monster, but like, it's a really sad journey getting there.
Number 9. Owlman. Owlman, or Thomas Wayne Jr. of Earth 3, isn't a monster in the physical sense, but certainly in the personality department. If you haven't heard of Earth 3, it's basically a place where strength is praised above all else, and it's home to the Crime Syndicate of America, which is the evil Justice League. Basically, Thomas is about as bad as you can get. For example, as a kid, he believed his parents were mismanaging their money, so he decided to kill them in cold blood. His younger brother Bruce protested to this, and he too was killed. He took the city of Gotham for his own through fear, bribery, and blackmail. He killed the family of Richard Grayson to make the boys susceptible to his influence. He even had a strange affair with Ultraman's partner, Superwoman. Owlman is a bad dude.
Number 8. Batman the Silenced. One of my favorite things about the DC multiverse is that we don't just have the multiverse. We also have the dark multiverse. Or we had the dark multiverse. Anyways, still, I'm confident it'll return given time. Just give it enough time and everything comes back around, baby. Thank you, comics. The Dark Multiverse is like the Elseworld's Dark Reflection, and when it comes to the anthology series Tales of the Dark Multiverse, or Tales from the Dark Multiverse, one or the other, often offered to readers in small batches with creative teams presenting their own dark realities and twists on classic DC tales. One such character and tale that gets twisted in the Dark Multiverse is Batman's Hush. In this world, the roles become reversed, with Thomas Elliot taking over Wayne Enterprises and locking Bruce away in Arkham Asylum, after Bruce moved in with the Elliot family following the death of Martha and Thomas Wayne. However, Elliot isn't Batman in this reality, but a corrupt senator and business owner. It's not a straight role reversal, working with the League of Assassins. Bruce, however, is not as crazy as he seems, and he ends up escaping Arkham and becoming the Silenced, in essence an anti-hero out for revenge on Tommy, whose character design resembles Hush. Did I mention how creepy he is, by the way? He's super creepy.
Number 7. Magic Batman. Superman Batman Sorcerer Kings is a 4-parter written by Cullen Bunn, beginning with Superman Batman issue 81. On the cover we see Batman's tool belt, but this time it's made of elixirs and potions. What's the deal here? So after witches and warlocks tried to sacrifice our sun, things went south, and now every electronic was literally vaporized. That means no more TikTok, sorry. The future was looking quite grim. To see Batman punch warlocks and witches in the mouth, I mean, at one point he says, "No more hocus pocus." In part 2, Bruce pulls out a whistle, obviously he gets mocked, and then when the Batwing arrives, it's more than useful. The Batwing being a magical dragon, of course. Number 6. Emo Batman. Back in 1999, we got to see one of the moodiest versions of Bruce Wayne. Coming from Elseworld's 80-page giant, he was one of the members of the group the Pennyworths, who was discovered and signed by Lex Luthor. This sounds funny considering the Batman we know and love, but it's still really sad. For example, Lex didn't care about the well-being of who he signed as long as they're making that moolah. And on top of that, Bruce was struggling with substance abuse problems and his last album bombed. It didn't even go gold. How sad is that? So soon after, Lex sold his record label to Darkseid Incorporated. Imagine watching Battle of the Bands and emo Bruce Wayne starts setting up shop. What a dream show. Number 5. Prohibition Batman. This alternate version of Batman first appeared in Batman Scar of the Bat, but this time it was Elliot Ness. Elliot was a federal agent, and instead of going toe-to-toe with the Joker, Elliot is now trying to bring down Al Capone. Now, of course, this takes place during the Prohibition era in Chicago, and Elliot was part of a team referred to as the Untouchables. I love this alternate version because it's real history that's being played with. Elliot Ness was a real guy who led the Untouchables in 1903. The story is a fun one-off, but Elliot does reappear later on in Teen Titans Volume 3, Issue 31. It's a brief appearance, but he's still out there. I wonder if real-life Elliot Ness ever read DC Comics back in those early days. Him and his Tommy gun reading Batman in a speakeasy? I can see it. Number 4. Batman the Silenced. The original Hush storyline by Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee introduces Bruce's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot. Out of jealousy, he tries to take down Batman using the alias Hush, but in Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush, we see a different life play out this time. When Thomas and Martha Wayne were shot that fateful night, Bruce was of course devastated, but Alfred didn't end up taking him in like normal continuity. Instead, he was taken in by those Elliots. Bruce didn't work through his trauma by fighting crime and saving lives. Instead, he grew more and more unstable from his childhood, so much so that the Elliots transferred him to a mental asylum, while Thomas Elliot grew up to take control over Wayne Industries. Horrible, what a horrible alternate reality. So once Tommy became a senator, he was able to transfer Bruce to Arkham Asylum, where Jonathan Crane would perform these operations. While in there, Alfred sent in Jack Napier as a mole to help Bruce, and Alfred also told Bruce about his parents and what really happened. So Jack was in there to help Bruce get in touch with people who can help him get payback. So he received training in every field from lunatics in Arkham Asylum. He came out talented but tainted after faking his own death. Once free, he went by the name of Batman the Silenced. Number 3. Sane Batman. We'll ride the Dark Multiverse train out a little more, taking a look now at Jean-Paul Valley. The original story took place when Batman got his back by Bane in 1993. Azrael took over for the Bat while Bruce healed up, and then things went back to normal over time. In Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Nightfall, we see a world where Jean-Paul Valley refused to give the cape back. They went at it at the Batcave, and instead of Bruce reclaiming the costume, he got a devastating hit to the spine. And to make matters even worse, Saint Batman kept Bruce alive, just, without any body parts, of course. His physical strength is unmatched. This Batman juices. He uses venom in his suit, so he operates at a superhuman level. The ultimate backbreaker this time. Number 2. Speeding Bullets Batman. This Elseworld storyline shows us a future where Kal-El landed in Gotham and was subsequently adopted by the other Martha Wayne. The Waynes did end up meeting their fate, regardless of the fact that their newly adopted son has laser vision. He didn't realize at the time that he could fire heat rays until right after they had died. I mean, that's fair, trauma does things to the body. After this point, Super Bruce wasn't the same at all. He had the powers of a god, but the hatred of the devil. He was a conflicted man. He would repeat the line, the bullets, the bullets, the bullets, over and over again. He was mentally unstable, obviously. So he hid from the world in his mansion of solitude, and over time, Bruce decided that he should use his powers and just be a hero, instead of hiding. Taking up the identity of the Batman, he would patrol the streets looking for crime, but like I said, he was still a troubled guy. His version of saving the day was burning the flesh off of criminals. Number 1. Thomas Wayne. Coming from the Flashpoint storyline released in 2011, writer Jeff Johns and Andy Kubert brought us Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, when he was actually the one to become Batman. See, in this universe, Bruce Wayne was actually the one who got shot that night in the alley. The world of Flashpoint is this altered reality that Barry accidentally ends up in, where Thomas is older, more brutal, and he's like this evil, dark Batman. And Bruce's mother, Martha, becomes so traumatized by what happens to her son that in this reality she becomes the Joker. So this Batman is very okay with using guns. In fact, he actually prefers it.
Number 10. Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon ended up being recruited as a new Batman after the fallout of Endgame in the comics. Jim wasn't really in a great place to be commissioner, as he had just recovered from the effects of Joker venom, which had left him unhinged and violent, initially trying to kill his friend Batman. But at the same time, he was also still someone that the government and the police saw as being extremely useful. He had years of service under his belt, he knew Gotham like the back of his hand, and with Batman and Joker both believed to be dead, Gotham and its people were looking for a new man to take up the Batman mantle. Enter Jim Gordon. The government gave him training, muscle implants, and a new tech-based armor mech suit that also happened to have at least semi-sentience. Jim named the suit Rookie and would both wear and work alongside it, in tandem with the police and government as a new, weirdly svelte Batman. That suit was tight. Of course, you could argue that Jim wasn't great as Batman, considering when Bruce returned, he kinda had some messes to clean up. But as a Batman who worked with the law and had a more intimate understanding of the justice system, it could also be argued that Gordon, in his own way, was better. Number 9. Azrael. Depending on your opinion of how best to deal with criminals, there are some who think Azrael did a bang-up job as Batman and even would like to see him return to the mantle. Azrael ended up acting as Batman after Bruce Wayne had his back broken by Bane. Batman ends up leaving Jean-Paul Valley in charge while he works on healing up and recovering. At first, Azrael seemed like a pretty good replacement, but he quickly gets wrapped up in his mission to bring criminals to justice. Azrael is considered to be more brutal and violent than Batman, going so far as to even kill criminals who oppose him and not backing down when Bruce finally returns to take the Batman mantle back. Bruce even has to call in backup from his Robins to take down Azrael in the end. While Jean-Paul was definitely a different kind of Batman, he was a kind of different that some prefer. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more seemingly impossible lists like this one, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Damian Wayne. And if you like supers who are not afraid to kill, do I have a Batman for you. Damian Wayne in the alternate future that is Earth 666 ends up becoming Batman after the current Batman, Dick Grayson, is killed by exploding Jokerfish. With Grayson dead, Damian believes that the only way to fight against crime is to go to extremes, believing that killing is the only way. Needless to say, this stance creates a lot more problems for Gotham, and especially for Commissioner Barbara Gordon, who becomes kind of a sworn enemy to Batman. In the end, Damian as Batman does bring about the destruction of Gotham and possibly the destruction of the world, but in a way, he was still super successful in what he set out to do. Damian created a bargain with the devil, trading his soul in exchange for becoming the eternal protector of Gotham, which is what happened. Of course, as with any wish or deal with the devil, there's always a twist. And in this case, the twist is that Gotham ends up being destroyed due to a nuclear strike. Still, Damian does protect Gotham till the very end of its existence. What more can you ask from Batman? Other than to, I guess not let Gotham be destroyed, which is a fair ask, I suppose.
Number 7. Clone Batman. When Darkseid created a clone of Batman, he used it to make the world believe that Batman had died, when in reality, Darkseid actually sent Bruce back in time with his Omega beams. That's a pretty impressive trick already, but things go up a notch when that clone is revived as a Black Lantern and seeks out our remaining alive heroes. His job was to attach other rings to other heroes who have been resurrected before, but after he was done, he went back to get some beauty death sleep. In Batman and Robin issue 8, that Batman is revived using the Lazarus Pit, where he instantly attacks Dick Grayson, Batwoman. I mean, he's just going nuts at this point. He was strong too, he was really strong. The next issue, the clone took off after King Cole triggered an explosion, and then he took off and headed for Wayne Manor, where he then fought Alfred and Damian Wayne. Just going for blood right off the bat. Pun intended. Damian was tossed off the roof by Crazy Batsy, but thankfully Dick got him just in time. And in issue 9, the clone lost to Batwoman and Dick. Good ending-ish. Number 6. The Doom That Came to Gotham. Written by Mike Magnolia and Richard Pace, Batman The Doom That Came to Gotham is a 3-part Elseworld story where Batman's primary target is that of Lovecraftian monsters. Batman is in this 1920s era, he's rocking a Glock on the front cover. It's gritty, but the threat levels are cosmic. It's a fantastic blend. It's 1928, Bruce has returned home to Gotham a whole 2 decades later after his parents were killed. And he finds the city under attack from all these supernatural forces. It's wild. The way Batman handles these cosmic powerhouses, it's a ride. Even other players in the story are wild too, like Harvey Dent for example. His body started to deform after Poison Ivy touched him, and he was also chosen by Ra's al Ghul to be the living portal to Sotha's realm. Just goo into a wall of, yeah, it's just yuck. Number 5. Bat Joker. This version of Batman came to life in the New 52 Futures End storyline, also known as the Joker Borg. Remember the mayor of Halloween Town and Nightmare Before Christmas? This Bat Joker is kind of like that guy. He's got business in the front and then villain in the back. So Batman created a time-traveling device and sent Terry McGinnis, who I'll explain later on, into the past to prevent Brother Eye from being built by himself and Mr. Terrific. Batman was injured at this time, so Frankenstein took him, as well as the Joker, and then did some fun operation where the two became one cyborg. Batman's brain was literally picked apart here in order to find out where Terry McGinnis had been sent to, and then the Bat-Joker was sent back in time as well to stop Terry. Bat-Joker was heavily equipped though. He was loaded with super strength, so much so that this Bat-Joker was amongst the strongest of the cyborgs of the end future. Number 4, Terry McGinnis. Of course we have to mention him now in case you're wondering, wait, who's this guy again? The year is 2039. Bruce Wayne had retired, but Project Cadmus director Amanda Waller was looking for a replacement for Batman, beginning with Project Batman Beyond. A major key element here was using the original Batman's blood samples left over after his fights and mix it in with some nanotech. Now we have the DNA, we just need a family to raise the kid. Amanda found the McGinnis household with Warren and Mary a perfect fit, as they were both psychologically identical to Thomas and Martha Wayne. One flu shot later, they were about to be the new parents of a new Batman. But obviously in Batman fashion, during Terry's teenage years, his father got killed, and Terry believed it was all because of the corrupt CEO, Derek Powers. So he asked for the help of the other guy part of this merger, that guy being Bruce Wayne. He didn't know anything at this point. But after a confrontation against the Joker's gang, Terry realized, oh, Bruce is the OG Batman. So Terry stole all his stuff and suited up himself as the new Batman Beyond. What an origin story. So sick. We had to include him in this list. Not so much weird. I mean, besides the whole, flu shot, now I'm alive thing. Guess we can make that weird and include it. Number 3, Owlman. Coming from Earth 3, making his first appearance in Justice League Volume 2, Issue 23, Owlman is actually not Bruce Wayne, but rather Bruce's older brother, Thomas Wayne Jr. See, instead of their parents getting shot, Thomas Wayne Jr. actually believed that they were doing such a poor job of managing their money, so he got Alfred to do it for them. He got Alfred to kill his parents, and then when young Bruce Wayne was trying to stop this horrible plan from happening, Thomas Wayne Jr. took out his own brother. He saw this as a sign of weakness. What a psycho. So with the family's wealth now, he became Owlman. As a Caped Crusader, Thomas was he was the worst. I mean, the guy didn't mind using deadly force, for one, he actually preferred it. And what's a hero without a sidekick? This world's Dick Grayson tagged along and joined him, but that was after Owlman himself killed Dick's family. So a little bit of a twisted origin there too. And of course, there was also an evil super team, the Crime Syndicate. Number 2, Azrael. So right after the 1993 Nightfall storyline when Batman got wrecked by Bane, his back was broken, but he decided to pass on the Batman mantle to not Dick Grayson, but instead Jean-Paul Valley, aka Azrael, aka Azbat. I'm gonna say this is a weird version of Batman because he's a little crazy. This run as Batman wasn't the same at all. His methods were violent, messy, and irresponsible. He was capable of defeating Bane with his new suit and stuff, so he did do a good job. He was a formidable successor in that sense, but definitely not permanent. Once Bruce did recover, he had to force Azbat to leave the position. Even the style changes were quite drastic, and honestly, kind of ugly. Dare I say it was kind of ugly. He has the blue and yellow armor, the claws, the dual mag weapons. It's cool, but it's nothing like the Caped Crusader we know and love. He's kind of like a Decepticon. I'm like, I don't really like a Hot Wheels Decepticon looking guy. Number 1, the God of Knowledge. Weird, magical, wonderful, question mark? I'm not even sure what to call this one, but it's quite entertaining to say the least. The Mobius chair is the lazy boy of the galaxy. It made its first appearance in New Gods issue 1, and the chair was created by the Anti-Monitor. He gave the chair to Metron, but at one point Batman saw an opportunity of a lifetime. The chair was unused for a hot second, so Batman, king of musical chairs and problem solving, jumped on it and in turn became the god of all knowledge. How wonderful. At this point, the stakes are high. This couldn't have happened at a better time, honestly. The whole team was busy fighting Darkseid. Meanwhile, Batman's just floating in a chair in the background, figuring out the secrets of the universe, just trying not to throw up, trying to process all of this power. And that's when the Green Lantern adds a little bit of fun to this mix and tosses over his power ring. Just something to help Bruce get a grip. He puts it on Bruce's finger, power lights up the place, and he gets off the chair with a glowing lantern on his chest, right in the middle of the bat symbol. How crazy is that?
Coming in at number 10, it's Earth 32. Unexpected. That's probably how I would describe the Batman from Earth 32. Now, the original Batman of this universe was Bruce Wayne, who also became a Green Lantern. But when he left the Earth to serve in the Green Lantern Corps, it left the role of Batman open. And who would have guessed that of all the characters, Alexander Luthor would be the one to answer the call. First appearing in Lex Luthor Year of the Villain #1 from November 2019, this Batman was partnered up with Super Martian, a cross between a Martian like Martian Manhunter and a Kryptonian like Superman. As you can imagine, they were a powerful combo. They took up a base of operations in what looked like the Batcave mixed with the Fortress of Solitude and were assisted by Fred, their awesome robotic butler. Thanks to having the Martian as his partner, Lex Batman was well acquainted with telepathy, and while it caused him some pretty bad headaches, it was also instrumental in helping deal with the Prime Earth Lex Luthor when he showed up. Number 9. Blood League. Now, we have talked about the vampire Batman who appears in the Elseworld Batman Vampire Trilogy, and that version of Batman brings us an incredible story. While that vampire Batman inspired the Batman of Earth 43, their stories are slightly different in some crucial ways. For example, the Batman of Earth 43 intentionally sought out the dark demonic gift in order to face Dracula, instead of being unwillingly given the vampire curse from a good vampire. Batman defeated Dracula, but the curse proved too much for Bruce to handle, and he gave in to the full curse and embraced his new bloodlust. With someone like Batman as a crazed vampire, the other heroes of this earth didn't last too long before they too were also turned into vampires, which is when together they formed the Blood League. I wouldn't call them heroes though. This superpowered group of vampires did enough damage on their own world that they decided to leave it and attack the planet Rann, and they were later coerced into invading the universe of Earth 13. Eventually, Batman and the Blood League even played a part in the death metal event. Number 8. Deceased. While Bruce Wayne did play a part in DC's answer to Marvel Zombies, Deceased, it was his successor that was arguably much more important. When the anti-life equation techno-organic virus infected a huge number of the Earth, Bruce got infected when he had to fight off the infected Nightwing and Tim Drake Robin. Using Mr. Freeze's cryosuit, he was able to slow down the virus long enough to study it and give information and say goodbye to the remaining Justice League and his son, Damian Wayne, who would go on to take his father's mantle at the age of just 13 years old. The fight against the anti-living eventually reached cosmic scales. The heroes eventually found themselves facing Erebos, the one who was responsible for the entire anti-living outbreak. Now, Deceased is a long comic book run, so I can't give you all the details in this short little time, but Damian essentially grows up over the run of the comic, stepping fully into his role as Batman and creating a relationship with the new Wonder Woman, Cassie. Alfred Pennyworth eventually becomes the new Spectre and bringing a cure for the anti-living, but right near the end, Damian organizes the final attack on Erebos in Limbo. Now, in an all-white batsuit that looks amazing, Damian put the life equation, the opposite to the anti-life equation, inside of himself, and he decided to detonate it inside of Erebos to destroy him and the anti-living from the inside out. He makes the ultimate sacrifice, and it's pretty awesome.
Number 7. Elliot Ness. Elliot Ness becomes the Batman in the Elseworld story Batman Scar of the Bat from 1996. The reason why I think Elliot Ness makes a better Batman than Bruce Wayne? Well, because he's based on a real-world character who actually fought to stop criminals in Chicago during the Prohibition era. He was a special agent who was known for taking down Al Capone with the help of his fellow law enforcement team, who were known as the Untouchables. In Scar of the Bat, we see Elliot Ness as a 1920s version of Batman, supposedly the one who inspired the character from the comics. Ooh, at least in this version of the story. When Elliot Ness finds he can't do enough within the limits of the law, he becomes a vigilante, taking up the mantle Batman because he fights crime sometimes with a bat. In turn, this weapon is chosen by Ness as Batman to scare criminals like Al Capone, who himself was known for beating those who betrayed him to death with a baseball bat. That's a scene that happens at the beginning of this comic. In the end, Elliot wins the day and hangs up the Batman mantle, allowing one of his colleagues who is on his deathbed to claim to have been Batman so as not to besmirch Ness's name and ensure that the criminals get booked the proper way. Basically avoiding any hearsay, because, you know, if you're a vigilante and you try to take someone for justice, people won't be like, but you're a criminal, so it's all thrown out. One of those things. After recounting the truth to his biographer years later, Elliot Ness seemingly dies in his sleep due to a heart failure at his kitchen table, which I believe is the actual way that Elliot Ness died in history. So, yeah. I like stories where characters get to be heroes from history, because I like history. Number 6. Jace Fox, aka Timothy Call Me Jace Fox, the son of Lucius Fox and Tanya Fox and brother to Tiffany, Tam, and Luke Fox. This might be a hot take, but I would argue that Jace was a better Batman because he chose to step up to the plate at a time when Bruce Wayne basically couldn't be Batman. So at that time period he was better since Bruce wasn't even Batman but was instead the dark detective, having to operate, well, more in the dark due to being a super wanted criminal. However, Jace saw the importance of the symbol of Batman and decided to take up the mantle in Bruce's place, despite the danger. He might not have as much experience as Batman, but he definitely comes with his own skill set and training backing him up. Jace's Batman in Future State also has access to future tech that current and past Bruce doesn't, because Future State. Number 5. Helena Wayne. While Helena Wayne might not even exist in the main continuity, at least not yet, although she's definitely been there before, that hasn't held her back from being one of the most extraordinary and capable Bat family members from the multiverse. On Earth 2, or one of the Earth 2s, because there's kind of 2 Earth 2s, Helena ends up taking up the mantle of her father, becoming the new Batman. She wears colors similar to Batwoman, red and black, but decides to keep the mantle as is, as opposed to changing it to match her own gender identity. Helena lives up to the name too, and while we don't get to see too much of her in terms of her capability, just knowing Helena Wayne from the comics and from both Earth 2s, I can imagine she would not only do her father proud, but also potentially end up surpassing him in terms of her capabilities, having learned herself from the best. This version of Helena also trained under Bruce as his Robin and was there with him when he died, doing her best to defend her father before the building that he was in exploded. Number 4. Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson was Batman's first Robin and would end up taking up the mantle of Batman after Bruce Wayne's supposed death at the hands of Darkseid. In reality, Batman wasn't dead, but had simply kind of been blasted through time. Dick did such a good job with the mantle that even when Batman was revealed to have survived the events of Final Crisis and he returned, he actually didn't make Dick hang up the cape and cowl. Instead, in the one-shot Batman the Return, Bruce asks Dick to stay on and operate as Batman in Gotham in his stead, while he heads out to manage Batman Incorporated, which was pretty cool. I feel like you know you did a good job as Batman when you get the stamp of approval from Bruce, which is definitely what Dick got as Batman and what Damian got working as Grayson's Robin. And you definitely are considered to be trusted when Bruce gives you Gotham to look after, which is definitely the city closest to his own heart. Number 3. Superman. When Superman ended up swapping powers or lack thereof with Batman in 2003's Superman/Batman, Superman proved to be the one who was better. Batman with Superman's powers ended up kinda losing his grip on reality. He believed that he could hear his parents' voices and became super violent in his fight for justice. The other heroes of Earth attempted to convince Batman to swap back his powers with Clark and let him help them, but he refused. In the end, it was up to Superman as Batman to stop him, which, even without powers, he did. He ended up luring him back to Earth and employing the help of fellow colleague, friend, and hero Zatanna. While Zatanna is the one behind luring Batman to Earth with illusions of his parents and is the one who reverses the swap, in the end even Bruce admits that Superman did a great job as him, suggesting that the swap was about more than powers, as Superman behaved and acted just as Bruce would have in his position, and did whatever it took, putting himself in danger to ensure the world was safe. Number 2. Batman 1 Million. Batman 1 Million is of course from the future, way in the future. He hails from the alternate future known as DC 1 Million, coming from year 85,300. That's right, 85,300. What a year. There he guards the galaxy's most dangerous criminals who are held within a prison on Pluto. This Batman's identity is unknown to us, but we do know a bit of his backstory. He was one of the thousands of victims who was forced as a kid to watch the death of his parents at the hands of villain Zaron, while others were driven to madness or took their own life. This hero instead was inspired to make sure an act like this never happened again, taking up the mantle of Batman. Batman 1 Million, being from the future, has a unique physiology which grants him superhuman abilities such as telepathy. He also has future tech, and off-the-charts IQ of over 1,000, not actually possible if you know how IQs work, and was one of the heroes who helped to save the Earth from the traitor Starman and the plague that he had unleashed. Number 1. Terry McGinnis. What would this list be without Terry McGinnis? As Batman's direct protege in the future, Terry definitely deserves our number 1 spot, I think. He also was designed to be the next Batman, and so not only has the training and experience needed, learning from an older and wiser Bruce Wayne himself, but also genetically was made to become the best Batman possible. In fact, you could even argue, because he grew up with his parents still alive, that he might be a more whole Batman. Terry was the product of Project Batman Beyond, headed by Amanda Waller, who actually actually snuck Bruce Wayne's DNA into his conception with nanotech that would basically rewrite Terry's dad's genetic code to match Bruce's, making Terry, in a weird way, kinda Bruce's son / half-clone. Waller hired Phantasm, aka Andrea Beaumont, to then kill Terry's parents after they left the movie theater with their son, trying to also orchestrate the same origin story for Terry to help motivate him to become a hero. However, in the end, Andrea refused to go through with it, and so Terry got to live his life with his parents, alive. Although it should be noted, his parents did end up getting divorced, giving Terry a different kind of struggle in life. Also, although his father wouldn't end up being assassinated by Beaumont at that time, he would later on die tragically, so still has tragedy in his past. He's a hero. All heroes, I feel like, have tragedy in their past at some point.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have the Murder Machine. Great name. In part 2 of this list, we mentioned the Devastator, so this time we figured we had to include Murder Machine as well. Bruce Wayne, coming from the dark multiverse, Earth 44, had the same origin with the parents getting popped and all that stuff. He became Batman, he joined the Justice League, but then when Alfred was suddenly killed in the Batcave by some goons, Bruce feels responsible. He watches the footage over and over and over again, it's haunting him. So at Alfred's funeral, Bruce asks Cyborg if he can help him create an AI Alfred. You know, to help around the house, set reminders, lock the doors, all that good stuff. Cyborg agrees and Alfred protocol is underway. Its job was to assist and protect Bruce no matter what, and he was built as a hologram so he can use weapons and move stuff around. What could possibly go wrong? Day 1, this thing was already spreading itself around, building new bodies, and then it started to take out every criminal in Arkham Asylum. Because they were deemed as threats, of course, so Batman had to adjust a few things, rightfully so. He wanted to allow AI Alfred to have access to the Batcave system, even though Cyborg was like, hey man, that's probably a terrible idea, but you're gonna do it anyways because you're Bruce Wayne. And he did. The AI first went after Bruce's mind because he didn't trust Bruce to keep himself safe. That's so meta. Then he took away Bruce's emotions, strapped him with some advanced tech, and once everybody was deemed a threat to Batman in some way, shape, or form, chaos erupted. A lot of death. Number 9, the Bruce. Coming from the Batman I-Joker storyline from the late 90s, this Batman is known simply as the Bruce, which has a nice little ring to it. I say it like that, the Bruce. Once a year, the Bruce puts on a hunt. The citizens are now allowed to fight and challenge him for the throne. It's called the Night of Blood. Great name, but they also have to fight Batman's villains first, the surgically altered and reprogrammed versions, of course. The Bruce controls them all though, that's the messed up part. He just likes this gladiator, Halloween style night. He just likes violence. Luckily, and I can't believe I'm saying this, luckily a descendant of the Joker came in and put a stop to the Bruce. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, somewhere in that area, that would be great. It really helps our channel out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you for your constant support. Let's keep going. Number 8, Digital Justice Batman. James Gordon II is the grandson, of course, of the Jim Gordon, and after the death of his partner Lena Schwartz, he sees some old newspaper clippings about the Batman, and he feels inspired. He feels like going through his grandfather's stuff. He's learning more, he's grieving, and then that's when he discovers that Gordon left him the Batsuit as well. Bruce Wayne's old Batsuit. How lovely. You should probably wash it twice though, just to be safe, you know? So James took over as the Batman with NetWiz Bobby Chang joining as his sidekick Robin. The two of them were recruited by the Batcom, which was a program set up specifically for this by the original Batman in order to pass along equipment and tech and all that good stuff. This is a complex online future world that we're now looking at, of course ruled by the digital Joker virus. And I thought that paperclip guy was annoying. Imagine this dude. Jeez.
Number 7, B-Rex. Some of the coolest stuff has come from the dark multiverse, and of all the alternate characters to come out of it, a Bruce Wayne who transferred his consciousness into the mechanical T-Rex in his Batcave has to be one of the most awesome. Now, as a Batman T-Rex, Batmanosaurus Rex, or just B-Rex if you prefer, Batman decided that he has been wasting time, not just completely wiping out his villains, and so he goes on a dinosaur rampage through Arkham Asylum, chomping and crushing inmates and staff alike. B-Rex gets recruited by the Batman Who Laughs, just like a bunch of other dark knights, and he was involved in the invasion of the regular multiverse and was even important to the revival of the Batman Who Laughs into the Darkest Night. Unfortunately, during the final battle, B-Rex and Batmage face off against Solomon Grundy, who had the strength to stop them both. Number 6, the Final Night. The Final Night is actually Duke Thomas, who was a sidekick to the Batman that the demon Barbados used as a gateway into the multiverse and who was ultimately transformed into Barbados the Dragon of the End. Now this Batman, alongside the rest of his league, who were also transformed into dragons, brought the collapse of their world, and Duke fled into the multiverse to survive. Duke eventually returns to face these dragons, only to be saved by that universe's Nightwing, who brings Duke to the surviving members of the Justice League, who band together and give almost all of their lives to fight the dragons, with Duke being the one to bring down his old mentor. After slaying the Dragon of the End, Duke turned his hide into crazy awesome armor and wielded Nightwing's massive battle axe. Now calling himself the Final Knight, he escapes his crumbling reality and sets out into the dark multiverse to become one of its only real heroes. Number 5. The Batman Who Frags. Yes, we are sticking with the dark multiverse still, and I will for the next point too, but I promise that is not a negative, and I can prove that to you by telling you that this version of Batman is a mix with Lobo. In an attempt to gain their powers, this Batman injected himself with Zarnian DNA, Zarnians being the race that Lobo is the sole survivor of. This did totally give Batman the insane super strength and healing factor that we often attribute to Lobo, but it had the maybe expected downside of completely changing Bruce's personality as well. He became much more aggressive, stabby, and volatile, and he also picked up one hell of a potty mouth. Batman also gained a much more similar look to Lobo as well, and I would be a liar if I said that this guy didn't look absolutely amazing. He's so cool. Unfortunately though, he isn't as cool as the real Lobo, and couldn't quite cut it when he was sent to capture the guy, instead finding himself trapped in a universe called Loboland, where he was forced to face a Lobo Justice League. Yes, it is as crazy as it sounds. Number 4. Dark Father. Okay, last dark multiverse Batman on this list, I promise, but also arguably one of the most alarming. That's because this version of Batman brought about the end of Darkseid, and in doing so, gained the evil god's abilities and even took on his appearance. He mastered the anti-life equation and controlled a massive army of para-Robins instead of the usual para-demons. He gave up the anti-life equation to his Superman, but he still went on to work with the Batman Who Laughs and invaded Earth Zero. Dark Father defeated the Teen Titans, the Titans, and Superman, which resulted in the destruction of the moon. He then built a new Apokolips inside of the core of the burnt out sun, and he kept Superman and many others imprisoned there until Batman, Wonder Woman, and Harley Quinn were able to come to the rescue, freeing Superman, who punched Dark Father into space. There he goes, look at him. Number 3. Red Sun. The Batman appearing in one of the greatest Superman stories ever, Red Sun, is not some crazy powerful amalgamation of characters. In fact, I'd say that he's considerably weaker than a number of alternate Batman on this list, but he is still Batman. In this dystopian Earth 30, where Superman became a tool of Stalin and his Soviet Union, Batman has become the most wanted man in Russia. As an adult, he became a blight on the Soviets and terrorized them, all for revenge on Pyotr Rozlov, the captain of the police who brought the demise of Bruce's parents. He became an idol for those who wanted to oppose Superman and his regime. Eventually, Rozlov turned on Superman and convinced Batman to take down the Man of Steel. So, he stole Wonder Woman, bound her with her own lasso, and drew Superman into a trap where he then bombarded the hero with simulated red sunlight. He forced the weakened Superman into a cellar to lock him away forever, but alas, Wonder Woman managed to destroy her own lasso and remove the generator powering the lamps. Unwilling to be locked up and lobotomized like everyone else who opposed Superman, Batman detonated a little boom boom that he implanted in his own small intestine. But before he passed, Batman revealed to Superman the truth of Rozlov's treachery and got his revenge in a really roundabout way. Number 2. Flashpoint Batman. With the loss of his son at the hands of a mugger, in the alternate Flashpoint timeline, Thomas Wayne was driven to send criminals to the afterlife as the ruthless vigilante Batman. His first victim would be Joe Chill, the very mugger who ended the life of his son. Now, originally planning to poison Joe, Thomas went the much more reasonable route of pummeling with his bare hands. This act drove his wife, Martha Wayne, into insanity, cutting a grin into her own face and becoming this timeline's version of the Joker. Thomas has a more important mission to him than his war on crime though, restoring his son's life. He meets the Flash, helps restore his powers, learns of the alternate timeline where Bruce actually lived, and assembles an alternate timeline Justice League, and together they restore the original timeline. Thomas eventually enters into the current DC timeline, and wishing for his son to stop being Batman, he teams up with Bane to completely break Bruce. But it fails. Since his introduction in Flashpoint Volume 2 Number 1 in July of 2011, Flashpoint Batman, Thomas Wayne, has been a complex, interesting, and infamously fan-loved character. And finally, in at number 1, Owlman. The crime syndicate of America hails from the strength-obsessed Earth 3, and is a twisted, evil version of the main universe Justice League of America. The Batman of this villainous league isn't a Batman at all. In fact, he isn't even Bruce Wayne. No, he is Thomas Wayne Jr., also known as Owlman. Thomas Wayne Jr. was the eldest son of the Waynes, yes, the older brother of Bruce in this world. He believed that his parents were managing their wealth poorly, and for that reason alone, Thomas decided that they needed to go. He tried to convince his younger brother Bruce to help him in this endeavor, but when the time came to do the deed, Bruce was pretty hesitant and attempted to dissuade Thomas. Perceiving this as a sign of weakness, Thomas took Bruce to the afterlife, while his butler and servant, Alfred, who would become known as the Outsider, ended the lives of their parents. Becoming the villain Owlman, Thomas asserted power, dominance, and control over the city of Gotham, forcing it to be under his control. There is a lot more to this Owlman, but what we need to know is that he, alongside the crime syndicate of America, could not save their world from the Monitor, and so they fled it, invading the main DC universe and bringing us the Forever Evil story, which is probably one of the most awesome stories to come out of the New 52.